Philippines Duterte in The Hague after ICC arrest over drug war. Now, I don't know if you know about Duterte. He was a very interesting president. He was, when it came to drug dealers, a very, very famous statement that he said was Hitler had a Holocaust of Jews. Why can't we have a Holocaust of drug dealers? So, so when it came to drug dealers, Duterte was somewhat heavy-handed, a little bit heavy-handed, yeah. And basically, anyone that was even so much as caught with like like over here, if you get caught with a joint on you, the police don't care. They'll just take it from you and send you on your way. Sometimes they don't even take it from you. Well, that's just weed though. Like the police are giving less and less of a toss about that. But if it's anything higher than that, you're probably going to catch a little bit of trouble, right? But in the Philippines, if you were caught with a single joint on you, you were getting like 5 years in prison. Minimum. That was a minimum sentence. Yeah, so rather heavy handed. So let's see what's happening with The Hague. For anyone that doesn't know, The Hague is the International Criminal Court. Basically, is where I think it was set up after World War Two. And obviously, after the Balkan conflicts back in the 90s and everything, a bunch of guys from a bunch of new countries, at least at the time, ended up in The Hague. And have you seen the famous video with that guy with the white beard downed a 4 hour energy and then died because it was a jar of poison? Yeah, that was in The Hague. But anyway, a plane carrying former Philippines President Rodrigo Duterte has arrived in the Netherlands where he is to face charges of crimes against humanity at the International Criminal Court over his deadly war on drugs. Duterte was arrested at Manila airport on Tuesday and within 2 hours was on a chartered jet which flew via Dubai to The Hague, where the ICC sits. The 79-year-old could become the first Asian former head of state to go on trial at the ICC. Duterte, who contested his extradition, led the Philippines from 2016 to 2022 and presided over a violent war on drugs that saw thousands of small-time drug dealers, users, and others killed without trial. He was just executing them. I mean, it's one way to do it. It's not very ethical, but anyway. The Gulfstream G550 landed in Dubai for a stopover early on Wednesday, and its expected departure was delayed for several hours while Duterte received medical checks, Reuters news agency reports. Once the plane had landed in Rotterdam, the ICC confirmed that Duterte was in its custody to face charges of murder as a crime against humanity. A hearing will be scheduled in due course for Mr. Duterte's initial appearance before the court. Meanwhile, the former leader's supporters gathered outside the Hague Penitentiary Institution protesting his arrest. Many of them waved the Philippine flag, while others mimicked Duterte's signature fist pumping gesture. We stand with Duterte read a banner held up by supporters. Duterte's main political rival, current President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., was instrumental in handing him over. How about that? Minutes after Duterte left Philippines airspace, Marcos gave a televised address saying the country was fulfilling its legal obligation. This is what the international community expects of us, Marcos said. The Duterte and Marcos families are the Philippines' most powerful political dynasties. They joined forces to sweep the country's last national election in 2022, but have fallen out in recent months as they pursued separate agendas. Basically, the other family got voted in and saw this as a very convenient opportunity to Harkonnen, Harkonnen the opposition, as it were. Duterte being handed to the ICC is the latest twist in a political feud that has unfolded spectacularly in the public view. The Duterte and Marcos families formed a formidable alliance in the 2022 elections. Against the elder Duterte's wishes, his daughter Sarah ran as Marcos Jr.'s vice president instead of seeking her father's post. Marcos initially refused to cooperate with the ICC investigation, but as his relationship with the Duterte family deteriorated, he changed his stance. Vice President Duterte said her father's arrest amounted to kidnapping, claiming it violated Philippine sovereignty. She left Manila for the Netherlands on Wednesday, according to her office. There's all the Filipinos there. We stand with Duterte. A death squad of bounty hunters. Oh, wow. Rodrigo Duterte previously insisted that the ICC has no jurisdiction over the Philippines since he pulled the country out of the tribunal in 2019, 3 years after it took note of the drug war's rising death toll. But according to the Rome Statute that is the basis for the ICC, the court maintains jurisdiction over alleged crimes committed before a nation leaves the tribunal. The ICC investigation covers 2011 to 2019, which includes the period when Duterte was mayor of Davao, a sprawling metropolis in the country's south where his family has held power for decades. Complaints filed against Duterte at the ICC allege that he kept a death squad of bounty hunters to go after drug suspects in Davao, and later replicated this model on a national scale when he was elected president. Human Rights Watch called Duterte's arrest a critical step for accountability in the Philippines. Duterte built a reputation for Davao as one of the Philippines' safest cities and cultivated the image of a tough-talking anti-establishment man of the masses to pull off a dark horse win in the 2016 presidential elections. Polls show he is the most popular Philippines president since the restoration of democracy in 1986. Now, what's the other guy? Is it Bukele? Yeah, is it Bukele that's in El Salvador? He was basically like him, but apparently even Bukele was kind of like, calm down, big guy. Yeah, Duterte, I mean, at least, MS-13 are being put in a prison and they're not just being dragged out and shot in the street, which is kind of what Duterte did. I do. Right, okay, then. I understand that when things get very bad, drastic measures are called for, but can people at least have a trial? At the very least, can people have a trial? His supporters have threatened to hold large rallies to protest against his arrest. They had asked the Supreme Court to issue a restraining order against the ICC warrant, but the court did not act before the former president was flown out on Tuesday. On social media, where the Dutertes maintain a strong following, the reaction was mixed. Many praised the ICC for delivering justice for those who died in the drug war, while others defended Duterte's legacy, with some calling for widespread rallies. Justice Served read a top-liked comment on TikTok. Philippines was safe during Duterte's time, another TikTok user wrote, saying the former leader built bridges, roads, and other infrastructure. He was the best president. Now, that is a little bit of a hand-in-hand thing. So, see, for example, does anybody remember... in fact, no, you won't remember. You're all fucking Zoomers. Right, but basically, see how back in the day, say the 1910s up until about like the 1970s, 80s, which was like the heyday of the mob in America. Right now, see how they used to come into your little family restaurant or your little family store and go, nice store, be a real shame if something would have happened to it, and like all that type of stuff as well, and they would threaten you out of protection money. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but see how like the protection money, yeah, in some very few instances it was to protect you from what they would do to you if you didn't pay, but in many instances it was genuine protection money. It was genuine protection money, and basically there was whole New York neighborhoods that were just really fucking safe. Whole neighborhoods in Chicago and New York were really, really safe because if you fucked with any of the businesses or any of the people, you would get your kneecaps broken, right? And that's just what would happen. That's just what would happen. And basically, so even though the mob did cause a lot of problems, they did keep neighborhoods safe. Same goes for the Yakuza in Japan. Basically, because the Yakuza were the dominant force in Japan and they did things a lot more honourably, even to the point where if any conflicts they had with each other got too out of control, they would agree to sit down and just say, fuck this and stop the war. And everything. The Yakuza operated very, very out of sight, out of mind. That's the way that they liked things. But however, they kept the streets safe. And now that the Yakuza have pretty much had their balls cut off completely, Iranian and Nigerian drug gangs who don't give a fuck about violence and don't give a fuck about harming civilians are now moving into Japan. So things have gotten worse. Now, whereas I really, really, really do not like authoritarians, there are some instances where if things get that bad, like get so fucking bad, then sometimes that's the only choice. And then once things are much better, you can start to dial it back. However, I don't trust governments to do that. They never fucking dial it back. They create more laws. They never ever repeal old ones, even if they're not needed anymore. So, right, obviously, I think drugs should be legalized completely. If people want to like fucking take all that shit or whatever, they absolutely can. That's them. Oh, but this will cause blah blah blah. Let's separate the wheat from the chaff. shall we? I think that's a very, very good metric for doing it. Weed, I don't give a fuck about. I don't really care who smokes weed. Weed dealers aren't dangerous. You could totally rob them like this. I mean, don't do that. Other drug dealers, not very happy with them. Not very happy with them, and I think they're scumbags. But yeah, I'm going to keep track of this one and see where it goes. But I do get a feeling that I think they televised the ICC trials as well. By the way, it's how we got the footage of that guy down in the poison. So this one is going to be very interesting to watch.